Welcome to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight, and not just any millionaire but someone holding a coin whispered about in collector circles like a myth that refuses to die, because today we're diving into the mysterious world of the 1952 wheat penny, a coin so ordinary on the surface that millions pass through hands without a second glance. Yet hidden among them are specimens rumored to command values reaching as high as $70 million, and before you dismiss that as impossible, let me tell you this story will completely change the way you look at every single penny you own, because somewhere out there, one of these coins has already rewritten someone's life and the next one could be sitting unnoticed in a dusty jar, a forgotten drawer, or even your own pocket right now. And trust me, you're going to want to stick around because the next coin we'll uncover after this one is even more unbelievable, and its secret has stunned even seasoned collectors who thought they had seen it all. But first, let's unravel why the 1952 wheat penny has become such an obsession in the numismatic world. Now, within the first moments of its discovery among elite collectors, whispers began circulating about a specific variant of the 1952 wheat penny that, under the right conditions and with the right rare characteristics, has been estimated and in some cases privately traded at jaw-dropping figures approaching $70 million. A number so insane it feels like fiction but is rooted in a combination of rarity, historical context, and minting anomalies that we're about to break down piece by piece, because this isn't just about a penny, this is about a perfect storm of history and error colliding into something priceless. Now, to understand the magic of this coin, you have to go back to the early 1950s in the United States, a time when the country was transitioning out of the post-war era, industry was booming, and the U.S. Mint was producing coins in massive quantities to keep up with economic growth. The wheat penny itself, designed by Victor David Brenner, had already been in circulation for decades, recognized by its iconic wheat stalks framing the reverse side. But what most people didn't realize is that during this high-speed production era, mistakes were bound to happen, and those mistakes are where fortunes are born. Because among the billions of 1952 pennies struck across mints like Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, a handful were produced with anomalies so rare that they transformed a 1-cent coin into a collector's dream. One of the most talked about possibilities is the existence of a transitional error where experimental metal compositions were accidentally used, creating a coin with a slightly different weight, tone, and durability compared to standard issues. And while the U.S. Mint never officially confirmed mass production of such variations, insiders and advanced collectors have long debated their existence, fueling the legend and driving demand to extreme levels. And here's where things get even crazier. Some 1952 wheat pennies have been reported with dramatic double die errors, where the design appears duplicated or slightly shifted due to misalignment during the minting process. And while minor doubling is relatively common, the extreme versions are exceptionally rare and highly sought after, especially when combined with pristine condition. Imagine holding a coin where the date and lettering almost appear to vibrate with duplication. That visual anomaly alone can send collectors into bidding wars. And speaking of condition, grading plays a massive role in determining value, because a heavily circulated 1952 penny might be worth only a few cents, but an uncirculated specimen graded at the highest levels, especially if it carries one of these rare errors, becomes something entirely different, something almost untouchable in value. And this is where the stories start to sound like something out of a movie. There have been accounts of individuals discovering rare pennies in inherited collections, old piggy banks, or even loose change from decades ago, only to later realize they were holding something extraordinary. One story often shared in collector communities involves a family who stumbled upon a nearly flawless 1952 wheat penny with unusual characteristics while sorting through an old coin jar, initially dismissing it as nothing special, until a closer inspection revealed subtle anomalies that led to expert evaluation. And while details of private sales are often kept confidential, rumors of multi-million-dollar offers began circulating shortly after, adding more fuel to the legend of this coin. And here's the thing that should really get your attention: most people would spend a 1952 penny without a second thought. It blends in perfectly with ordinary change. There's nothing about it at first glance that screams fortune, which means that even today, decades later, there's a real possibility that undiscovered examples are still out there, hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone curious enough to look a little closer. And this is exactly why collectors are obsessed, because it's not just about owning a rare coin, it's about the thrill of the hunt, the idea that history has left behind tiny clues scattered across everyday life. And if you're paying attention, you might be the one to find them. Now, before you think this is where the story ends, let me remind you to keep watching closely, because what's coming next in this series of coins is even more shocking. There's another penny with a story so unbelievable that it has left even top experts questioning everything they thought they knew, and trust me, you don't want to miss that. But before we get there, let's circle back to why the 1952 wheat penny continues to command such attention. Beyond the errors and rarity, it represents a piece of American history frozen in time, a snapshot of an era when coins were more than just currency, they were symbols of craftsmanship and national identity. And when something disrupts that perfection, even slightly, it creates a ripple effect that echoes for decades, turning a simple minting mistake into a legend. And as collectors continue to search, analyze, and debate these coins, their mystique only grows stronger, pushing values higher, and making each discovery feel like uncovering buried treasure. So the next time you come across an old penny, don't just toss it aside, take a second look, because hidden within that small copper disc could be a story worth millions. And if you thought this coin was unbelievable, just wait until you see what's coming next. Because the next coin in this journey takes rarity and mystery to an entirely different level, and it might just change everything you thought you knew about coins forever. Next, 1945's wheat penny. Have you ever checked your coins carefully, like really carefully? Because this is one of those moments where a single glance could cost you a life-changing discovery. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that the 1945's wheat penny is one of those coins that looks completely ordinary but hides a secret so massive that collectors have been chasing it for decades. And somewhere out there exists a version of this coin that has been whispered about with staggering valuations, climbing into the tens of millions, with some private estimates pushing toward $80 million. A number so wild it almost sounds made up until you understand the story behind it. And trust me, you're going to want to stay locked in, because what makes this coin valuable is even more unbelievable than the last one. And by the time you hear the full story, you'll probably start checking every single penny you own. And just like before, don't go anywhere, because the deeper we go, the crazier these coins get. Now let's break this down, because the 1945's wheat penny comes from a very specific and fascinating moment in history, right at the tail end of World War II, when the United States Mint was under intense pressure to produce coins efficiently while also dealing with material shortages and shifting priorities. The San Francisco Mint, marked by the small S mint mark beneath the date, was one of the key facilities producing these pennies. And while millions were struck, the conditions of the time created the perfect environment for rare and unusual minting anomalies. And this is where things start to get really interesting, because among those standard copper coins, there have long been rumors and reports of transitional metal errors and experimental strikes that slipped through unnoticed, creating coins that are fundamentally different from what they were supposed to be. Imagine a coin struck on a planchet intended for a different composition, slightly off in weight, subtly different in color, almost impossible to detect unless you know exactly what to look for, and yet those tiny differences can mean everything, because in the world of high-end coin collecting, uniqueness is king, and the rarer the anomaly, the higher the stakes. Now one of the most talked about possibilities with the 1945's wheat penny is the existence of off-metal strikes, where leftover planchets from earlier wartime experiments or test batches were accidentally used, creating coins that defy expectations. And while official documentation is scarce, the numismatic community thrives on these mysteries, with collectors constantly searching for that one piece that proves the legend true. And then you have the error varieties that are a bit more visible but just as valuable, dramatic double dies where the lettering and date appear duplicated, misaligned strikes that create ghost-like impressions, and even rare cases of die cracks and cuds that add unique character to each coin. And here's the thing that makes this coin even more exciting: many of these errors are incredibly subtle, meaning they can easily go unnoticed by the average person, which is exactly why some of the most valuable finds come from the most unexpected places, like old family collections, estate sales, or jars of loose change that haven't been touched in decades. And yes, there are real stories of people discovering rare 1945's pennies in exactly these ways. One collector famously recounted finding an unusual specimen while sorting through inherited coins, initially drawn to its slightly different tone and sharper strike, only to later realize it had characteristics that set it apart from standard issues. And while the full details of its eventual sale remain private, the buzz it created in collector circles was enough to send shockwaves through the community, further cementing the coin's legendary status. And this is where you need to pay attention, because just like the 1952 penny we talked about earlier, the 1945's wheat penny doesn't announce its value. It doesn't sparkle or shine in a way that screams rare. It blends in, it hides, and that's exactly why it's so dangerous to overlook, because most people would spend it without a second thought, never realizing they just let go of something extraordinary. And let's talk about condition for a second, because this is where things can go from impressive to absolutely insane. A heavily circulated coin might still hold some collector interest, but a near-perfect, uncirculated example with a rare error can skyrocket in desirability, especially when certified by professional grading services that confirm its authenticity and condition. And when you combine rarity, historical significance, and pristine preservation, you end up with a coin that collectors are willing to fight over, pushing values higher and higher with each passing year. And here's something that should really stick with you: the hunt for these coins is far from over. Even today, decades later, new discoveries are still being made, which means the possibility of finding one hasn't disappeared. It's just waiting for the right person to notice, and that person could literally be anyone, including you, sitting there right now, maybe with a handful of coins nearby that you've never thought twice about. And before you brush that idea off, remember how many incredible finds have started exactly that way, with someone simply taking a closer look. And speaking of taking a closer look, you should definitely stay with me, because even though this coin is already mind-blowing, the journey we've been on is building towards something even bigger, even rarer, and even more unbelievable than anything we've covered so far, because the world of rare coins doesn't just stop here, it gets deeper, stranger, and way more valuable. and if you thought the 1952 penny was shocking and this 1945's penny is next level, then what's coming after this will completely flip your expectations, but for now just remember this: the next time you see a 1945's wheat penny, don't ignore it, don't assume it's just another old coin, because hidden within that tiny piece of copper could be a story worth millions. And if you thought this one was valuable, just wait, because the next discovery in this series is even more unbelievable and you won't want to miss a second of it.